The show kicks off with Mary Bennett, a smart, beautiful girl. Her only problem? Her looks just don't fit society's standards. Or let's be real, her mom's strict standards for snagging a rich, eligible bachelor, especially when she's got 4 sisters who check every single box on her mom's wish list. Basically, Mary is the only one swimming completely against the current. So, will Mary cave under the heavy pressure from her mom and society, morphing into a carbon copy of her sisters? Or will she blaze her own trail, the one she absolutely knows holds her true happiness? But before we unpack this whole story from the top, all right, let's wind the clocks back and dive right into the action. Right around this time, Mary's mind is hooked on this one specific thought. Even if a girl is totally broke and down on her luck, just having a pretty face is enough to open the door to endless suitors. Because back in the day, a girl's entire worth was completely defined by the guy she married and his spot on the social ladder. And naturally, Mary didn't just pull this mindset out of thin air. Nope. That is 100% her mom's influence. Speaking of the devil, she suddenly crashes in on her 5 daughters to drop a massive bombshell. They've got a brand new neighbor named Mr. Bingley, and the guy is absolutely loaded with huge estates. She tells them, "You girls better bring your A game, because there is no way he's choosing someone outside this house." Now, to figure out why she's acting so totally over the top about this, we need to rewind a little bit and get to know the Bennett family on a much deeper level. Because after her mom and dad tied the knot, they found themselves popping out one girl after another until they hit 5. And right there, that's exactly where the crisis began. Because their mom is dead set on the idea that to prove her worth, she has to marry them off to the absolute best catches in town. Plus, the girls were basically making it easy for her. First up is Jane, with her knockout looks. Then there's the sharp-witted Lizzie, the always smiling Kitty, and, of course, Lydia, who is just a pure ball of energy. But then there's Mary. She is basically the black sheep of the family, and you can totally see it in the harsh way her mom treats her. It gets so bad that one day, Mary actually overhears her mom venting to a friend, complaining that Mary's face is always red, and her skin just isn't clear like the rest of her sisters. She literally drops the line, "Honestly, I'll be more than happy if I can just marry off the other 4. I just really hope her sticking around doesn't wreck her sister's chances." Hearing that, it completely crushed Mary. It stung so deeply that she couldn't even bring herself to look in the mirror. Cut to the very next day, and we find her at the optometrist's shop, all because her eyesight is getting so fuzzy she can't even read comfortably anymore. And obviously, this is a massive risk. I mean, her mom barely tolerates how she looks as it is. So there is 0 chance she's going to let this whole glasses thing slide easily. While she's there, we meet Mr. Sparrow, the expert helping her pick out the right lenses. And it is super obvious the guy is totally crushing on her. He even goes out of his way to tell her she looks absolutely gorgeous in her glasses. But the only thing running through Mary's mind is, yeah, my mom is definitely not going to agree with you on that. Later on, while she's heading back home with her sisters, she finds out there's a huge ball happening in Meryton in about a month. And these balls are basically the ultimate hunting grounds for snagging the perfect husband. The real kicker, though, you can totally see in the way her sisters treat her that even they couldn't care less about her. They just interact with her on the absolute most superficial level. At the end of the day, their dad insists that only 3 of them are going to the ball. And surprisingly, Mary is one of them, but his wife immediately shoots that down because she's completely given up hope on her. She basically tells him all 5 are going so the other 4 can hunt for a husband. But Mary? She's just going to wait on me hand and foot and fetch my juice. So, Mary tries to tune out this soul-crushing argument before it gives her full-blown trauma, and she just puts on her glasses to read. But oh boy, that turns into an even bigger disaster. Her mom just completely shatters her confidence, basically hitting her with, "Did you really think your face needed to look even worse than it already does, you absolute disappointment?" She just keeps scratching her hands under the table, trying desperately to keep her cool and not burst into tears right in front of them. Later that night, the maid, Hill, notices that Mary is actually pretty hyped about the ball and really wants to go. So she tries to lift her spirits, suggesting, "Hey, how about I help you pick out the dress you're gonna wear?" But Mary is terrified that she'll just be totally invisible there, and that literally no one will ask her to dance. Hill makes her understand that, even if she looks super plain standing next to her sisters, that doesn't mean she doesn't have her own amazing qualities that make her lovable and eye-catching. Mary is absolutely thrilled by these words, because that was exactly what she needed to hear. A month rolls by, and we see Mary super hyped as she's getting ready for the ball with her sisters. As soon as they arrive, they bump into their family friend, Charlotte. And man, it is super obvious that the girl-to-guy ratio is way higher than any previous season. The competition is absolutely fierce. In the middle of all this chaos, Mary is just standing there watching her sisters get swept up to the dance floor one by one. She's just chilling on the sidelines watching from afar. Until boom, her luck finally turns around and Mr. Sparrow actually asks her to dance. She gets so excited because she's been dying to have this kind of moment just like the other girls. But sadly, the fairy tale doesn't last long. Suddenly, Charlotte pops up and hits her with, "You do realize that if you dance with him 3 times in a row, you're basically agreeing to be a couple, right?" But Mary tries to completely block out all those unwritten rules because all she cares about right now is just having a good time, period. But right at that exact moment, her mom yanks her aside and completely forbids her from dancing with him again. Why? Because his dad owns a glasses shop, which basically makes him way lower on the social ladder than them. Her mom's logic is basically, look, if you can't land a high-value guy, the absolute least you can do is not trash your sister's reputation in high society. And the real tragedy here? Mary is such a pushover when it comes to her mom that she literally follows her orders to a T. She doesn't even hesitate for a second before she completely crushes Mr. Sparrow's heart, straight up telling him, "I can't dance with you anymore because my mom thinks you're not on our social level." And right then, it hits her like a ton of bricks. She just deeply hurt an innocent guy whose only crime was having real feelings for her. And it's all because of her toxic mom, who is honestly just the absolute worst. She heads back home feeling super mad at herself. She looks in the mirror and thinks, since when did I become this weak and insecure? So she decides right then and there that this is the perfect time to discover herself and figure out exactly what path she wants to take in life. Because of that, she spends weeks completely isolating herself from the outside world. She literally does nothing but read, hoping it'll give her some much-needed real-life experience. Later on, a letter arrives at the house. Naturally, her mom is totally convinced that Mr. Bingley must have fallen for one of her girls and wants to propose. But her high hopes get completely crushed because it turns out to just be a letter from their cousin, Mr. Collins, who is basically just inviting himself over for dinner, like it's no big deal. Here's the catch, though. We find out that their inheritance system means that when the dad dies, the entire estate goes straight to the male cousin. Because of that, her mom decides she absolutely has to get him to marry Lizzie so they don't end up getting kicked out of their own house. Lizzie is super annoyed by this, mostly because just from the way the guy writes, you can easily tell he's incredibly boring. Basically, cut from the exact same cloth as Mary. And as usual, poor Mary just stays totally silent, getting roasted left and right without having the guts to actually stand up for herself. Halfway through the day, they're all waiting out front to welcome him in person. That's when Charlotte, their family friend, decides to give Mary some friendly advice. She's like, "Look, Mary, let's be real. If I were in your shoes, I'd do absolutely anything to make him pick me." But Mary has already made a promise to herself. She's going to spend the rest of her life focused on science, health, knowledge, and absolutely nothing else. Charlotte is totally baffled by this and spells it out for her. Life only goes down 2 roads. Either you get married or you end up miserable. So please, don't choose the path of the old maid. As soon as Mr. Collins arrives, you can instantly tell the guy is an absolute snooze fest. And not only that, he literally can't string 2 sentences together without putting his foot in his mouth right in the middle of it. The kicker though, Mary actually bought into Charlotte's advice big time. She tries every trick in the book to strike up a conversation with him, but he totally ghosts her and keeps his eyes glued entirely on Lizzie. Meanwhile, her mom catches on to her pathetic little attempts and gives it to her straight, basically saying, "Knock off whatever garbage you're doing right now. He's got his eyes on your sister." Mary gets super ticked off about this, mainly because she knows for a fact that Lizzie would never in a million years agree to marry him. So, what's the big deal if she tries her own luck, right? Later on, Mr. Collins announces that there's a ball coming up this weekend. He straight up asks Lizzie to be his dance partner. And oh man, wouldn't it just be the absolute cherry on top if she played the piano and sang in front of the whole crowd? So Mary totally seizes the moment. Her logic is basically, well, if you want a girl who can sing, I'll be your singer. She spends the entire week practicing her heart out, and nobody even notices the absolute train wreck she is plotting. But when the night of the ball finally rolls around, she watches her sister play the piano and starts completely second-guessing herself, terrified that she's going to look terrible or totally embarrass the family in public. But the second Charlotte finds out that the entire family fortune is being handed over to Mr. Collins, she goes all in on hyping Mary up. She basically tells her, if you blow this chance right now, you are never getting another one. So she actually gathers up all her guts and gets up to sing in front of the entire room. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking she's about to blow them all away, right? Sadly, yeah. If only she had just stayed in her seat. The whole thing turns into an absolute cringe fest. The minute she catches those mocking side-eye glances from everyone in the crowd, she totally runs off to hide in a corner and just completely breaks down crying. At the end of the day, Lizzie is the only one who actually feels for her sister. She tries to talk to her and smooth things over, telling her, hey, my day was absolutely awful too. But Mary has total tunnel vision on her own misery. She's basically like, why was it hard for you? Because you're pretty. Everything just falls right into your lap. Meanwhile, I have to bust my hump for every little thing, and I still end up with nothing. Lizzie tries her best to be understanding, apologizing just to soften the blow for what Mary went through. The very next day, two of her sisters burst into her room, totally hyped up, and let her know that the house is completely on fire. Why? Because Mr. Collins actually proposed to Lizzie, and she shot him down. Naturally, their mom threw a massive fit and picked a huge fight with her. So their dad just totally sulked, locked himself in his office. And as for Mr. Collins, yeah, it looks like he's packing his bags and hitting the road. Right around this time, their mom figures that since Lizzie is being completely useless, they can just sub Mary in. She marches into her room and seriously turns on the charm, sweet-talking her just to get her to agree to try her luck with Mr. Collins. But the problem is, Mary is 100% sure the guy won't even give her the time of day. And despite everything Mary is feeling inside, her mom just keeps dialing up the pressure, basically telling her, just roll the dice. If he says no, you just go back to normal. No big deal. And with her kind of luck, when they all finally gather around Mr. Collins, they discover a massive bombshell. He actually proposed to Charlotte, and she said yes. That hits Mary incredibly hard, because every single time she tries to do anything to make her mom proud and prove she has worth, the universe just completely flips the script on her. Not to mention, her mom rubs serious salt in the wound. She actually blames Mary for the whole mess, straight up telling her that no man is ever going to marry a girl who wears glasses. Like, bro. Why? Why wouldn't a guy marry a girl in glasses? A little while later, we see the Bennett girls getting hitched one by one. And sadly, Mary is the only one left on the shelf. As always, our heroine just tries to bury herself in her books as much as possible, until the day comes that turns her entire world completely upside down. Sadly, her dad passes away completely out of the blue. He leaves her all alone with her mom. And honestly, God help Mary, not the mom. And just to add to the absolute dumpster fire, barely a week into mourning, Mr. Collins shows up in the flesh to drop another bomb. You have exactly 2 weeks to pack up all your stuff and get out. The sisters just start exchanging these awkward looks because somebody has to step up to the plate and take their mom in. So Jane basically bites the bullet and steps up before their mom literally drops from the shock. And naturally, she offers to take Mary in too. But their mom just shoots her down like, oh, you don't need to come with me at all. My brother and his wife in London sent a letter. They want you to spend the summer with them because their kids' nanny is on vacation. Mary is completely blindsided. She figured that at the very least right now, her mom would actually need her around. But nope. It turns out Mary is basically just a background character in her mom's life. Right before she hits the road, she waits around for her mom to come out and actually say goodbye. But sadly, Hill, the maid, just walks up and lets her know, yeah, your mom is feeling a little under the weather and can't come out. Mary tells her, I'm just so terrified the kids aren't gonna like me. But Hill tries to hype her up, telling her that this is the absolute perfect time to get out there and explore the world, because it's exactly what she needs to grow. The second she touches down in London, her Aunt Gardner is absolutely thrilled to see her. She takes her straight up to show her the room, trying her best to make Mary feel safe and at home. Because let's face it, what she's been through lately was no walk in the park. Mary is just totally blown away by the whole place. I mean, this is literally the first time in her entire life she's been treated with this kind of genuine, unconditional love and appreciation. The very next day, she meets her 3 little cousins, Anne, George, and Rebecca. Now, because Mary is super straight-laced and serious, the very first time they sit down together, she starts reading them heavy books on history and geology, literally until poor George passes out from pure boredom. So she tries to switch gears and explain the world map to them. But this time, Rebecca just straight up bails and runs away. Out of nowhere, Tom Hayward, a close family friend, walks into the room, and you can instantly tell the kids are completely obsessed with him because they just light up the second he walks in. Not only that, but he just keeps goofing around and cracking jokes with her until Rebecca finally gives in and pops right out of the wooden trunk she was hiding in. And honestly, this is pretty much the first time we ever see Mary let her guard down and just act totally natural with someone. After they all grab lunch, they just spend the rest of the day hanging out and playing together. But Mary chooses to just sit on the sidelines and watch because she's completely convinced that she's a boring person who just isn't cut out for games. And all of this is purely the result of her mom's toxic words echoing in her head all the time, just because their personalities are completely different. Later that night, Aunt Gardner pops into her room to let her know that they're going to be hosting a ton of dinner parties coming up. She reassures her, hey, you don't need to push yourself or pretend to be someone you're not. But if you're up for it, we could always pick up a few new dresses for you. Mary gets super hyped about the idea and immediately agrees. The very next day, they hit up the fabric shop together, but Mary just can't bring herself to pick anything out on her own. The only thing completely taking over her thoughts is, my mom was convinced that literally no color looks good on my skin. So, Aunt Gardner gives her a reality check, reminding her, your mom isn't here right now, so just pick whatever color you love. It doesn't matter if it's flattering or not. The only thing that matters is that you feel comfortable. Later, when she finds herself all alone in the house, she seizes the moment to try and play like the others, figuring, hey, maybe I actually do know how to play normally. But suddenly, Tom pops up out of nowhere. He's super stoked to see that she finally decided to break out of her shell, and he actually offers to play with her. And right here, this is where Mary starts catching some real feelings for him. Because not only does he totally get her, but he even suggests poetry books for her to read because he fully realizes that it's her absolute favorite thing in the world. When the time finally rolls around for the first family gathering at her uncle's house, she is an absolute bundle of nerves. Because honestly, these are the exact kinds of moments where she always felt completely marginalized and totally invisible. But by pure chance, she meets Baxter, who turns out to be super sweet and friendly to her. She actually manages to have an awesome time and act completely natural, right up until she gets hit with a massive reality check. Baxter is actually Tom's girlfriend, and to make it worse, they have an agreement that the second he gets his finances straight, they're tying the knot immediately. Naturally, after a massive blow like that, she tries her hardest to look at the glass half full. She decides to spend every single moment in London just discovering herself and meeting new people. But the second she gets back to the house, she overhears her uncle talking to his wife about her. He's basically saying that his sister's toxic parenting completely messed Mary up, leaving the poor girl with zero self-confidence and constantly terrified to interact with anyone around her. She gets incredibly upset, mostly because she had no idea her insecurities were that painfully obvious to everyone. So, she quickly sneaks out before they can even notice she was standing there. By pure chance, she bumps into Tom right outside the house. He's super pumped to hear what she thought about that poetry book he gave her last time. But she just wants to set some strict boundaries to keep her feelings in check, so she quickly darts back inside the house. The real kicker, though, she finds out her mom sent her a special letter demanding she come back to the city to spend the summer with her. And obviously, it's not because she misses her at all. Nope. It's literally just because her dog is going through a bit of a rough patch mentally, and she needs someone to take care of it. Get well soon, buddy. So Mary feels like this is the absolute perfect excuse to make a run for it, because she just can't handle all these massive changes happening to her since she touched down in London. Later on, Aunt Gardner comes over to drop some news. Tom invited them over to his place tomorrow morning. His whole goal? He wants to move their hearts and minds towards poetry. She finds his effort super weird, mostly because she fully realizes he's doing all of this just for her, since she's constantly projecting this image that she absolutely hates poetry. The very next day, the second they arrive, he personally welcomes them all the way out into the courtyard. He starts reading them his absolute favorite poem, totally hoping they'll see it through his eyes. And sure enough, Mary gets incredibly moved by it. It hits her so hard that she literally tears up when he finishes. Right then, Aunt Gardner grabs her husband for a little stroll, purposely leaving the two of them alone to spend some quality time together. But Mary is an absolute nervous wreck, because the more she interacts with him, the more she feels her feelings for him growing stronger and stronger. So, just to put an end to all this internal chaos, she flat out tells him, I'm heading back to the city to be with my family because my mom needs me around. Besides, you're way too busy anyway. Your time is completely split between work and Baxter. so you won't even notice I'm gone. And the weirdest part? You can totally see that Tom is genuinely upset by what she said, but his hands are completely tied, because at the end of the day, he's basically a spoken-for guy. Later on, she tells her uncle and his wife that she's heading back at the end of the week, so they insist on throwing her a farewell party at the very least. At this point, the only thing left to do is write a reply back to her mom, letting her know she's officially coming back to spend the summer with her, just like she asked. Now, because Aunt Gardner fully realizes she's just running away, she tries talking to her, hoping to change her mind. She tells her this little story. One time, I went hat shopping and saw this stunning blue hat that I absolutely loved. But sadly, it was already spoken for. So when I went to another shop, I actually found 3 more that I loved just as much. And in the end, I bought the one that felt the most me. And obviously, she is not talking about hats here. But sadly, Mary totally misses the moral of the story, and the advice just flies right over her head. So, Aunt Gardner has to spell it out for her. Staying in London is going to open so many doors for you to meet tons of new people until you finally find the one who truly matches your vibe. Because of those exact words, Mary actually hesitates to send that letter to her mom. And by the end of the day, she gathers up all her confidence and puts on the dress where she picked out every single detail all by herself, specifically for the party they threw just for her. By total coincidence, she meets a guy named William Ryder, and you can clearly tell the guy is super intrigued by her. But for Mary, her entire focus is glued to the brain games they're playing, mostly because it's literally the first time she's ever spent her time doing something like this. She looks so incredibly happy that Tom is just about to tell her, "I'm so glad to finally see you acting like your true self." But he doesn't even get the chance, because Ryder just jumps right into the middle of the conversation, desperately trying to grab her attention in any way possible. And right then and there, Mary makes the call to stick around London for the summer and not go back to the city. Aunt Gardner is absolutely thrilled by this decision because she fully understands that Mary being around her mom is the absolute biggest thing destroying her mental health and totally dulling her sparkle. And honestly, it completely kills my vibe too. And of course, before she does anything else, she writes a brand new letter to her mom to let her know, "Yeah, I'm not going to be able to travel. Plus, I just got invited to one of the weekly balls." Later on, she's taking a walk with Baxter, who tells her, "I heard the nanny is back from vacation, so this is the perfect time for you to start hunting for a husband." But Mary is already completely traumatized by that whole topic. She tells her, "I knew someone who was totally convinced that it's either marriage or pure misery. What do you think about that?" Baxter is naturally mind-blown by that kind of mindset. She makes her realize you literally have your whole life ahead of you to find the right guy. And besides, there are plenty of miserable marriages out there. So it's basically the exact same outcome. Naturally, this whole chat gets Baxter incredibly hyped to give Mary a total makeover before their upcoming ball. We're talking face masks, teaching her how to walk with absolute confidence, and showing her how to actually project that in the way she interacts with people. But above all else, she reminds her, you absolutely have to act like your true self. As soon as they hit the ball, Baxter actually asks Tom to dance with Mary, just to get her out there so she can turn some heads. At that point, Mary basically has to say yes, because she really doesn't want it to look like she's straight up avoiding him. And honestly, she counts down the seconds until the dance is over so she can just leave him to get back to Baxter. Just then, by pure coincidence, Ryder comes over to say hi with massive enthusiasm. He's like, "I honestly never imagined we'd bump into each other again this fast." The two of them just keep chatting about all sorts of different things. And the absolute biggest thing drawing Ryder in, every single one of her perspectives is completely different from his, which totally forces him to look at things from a brand new angle. Later, he asks her to dance, and when he senses that she's way too tense and overthinking every single step she takes, he just starts asking her about the things she loves doing to help her shake off all that inside anxiety. And right in that moment, her whole vibe totally flips. She looks so incredibly happy that she literally grabs the attention of everyone in the room. Even Tom himself is totally grinding his teeth with jealousy on the low. And naturally, the second she starts stepping into the spotlight, the haters are bound to show up, because suddenly, Miss Caroline Bingley swoops right in to totally crash her happy moments. She lets Ryder know that her brother is actually married to Mary's sister, and she completely goes out of her way to humiliate her right in front of him. She hits her with, "Oh, I heard from your mom that you traveled here to work as a nanny. Or are you actually just here hunting for a husband?" So, Ryder tries to change the subject ASAP. He invites Mary to a party he's throwing at his place on Thursday, and then just grabs Caroline and bails. The very next day, Aunt Gardner totally notices how Mary's entire vibe shifted at the ball after talking to Caroline. She makes her realize she only did all of that because she felt totally threatened by you. But Mary is completely baffled by this. She's like, threatened? How? She's way prettier than me, and her confidence is literally off the charts. Meanwhile, look at me. That's when Aunt Gardner drops some serious wisdom on her. Sometimes, all that outward confidence is just hiding a massive pile of insecurity and self-doubt. So naturally, she's going to treat you like you're beneath her just to boost her own ego. Nothing more. But with someone like Caroline, you absolutely have to set strict boundaries so she doesn't end up hurting you. Later on, when she heads over to Ryder's dinner party, he is incredibly stoked that she showed up. He even tells her, all your talk about books totally made me fall back in love with reading again. But the second Caroline arrives and catches them standing together, her whole face just totally drops. She purposely marches right over to join them, completely determined to steal all his attention back to her. Not only that, but when they all gather for dinner, she literally sprints to claim the seat right next to Ryder. Meanwhile, poor Mary ends up stuck next to a guy who clearly couldn't care less about anything except stuffing his face. She gets so incredibly bored that she actually tries striking up a conversation with him about books, but it is blatantly obvious the guy has zero interest in anything she's saying. So when she finally gives up, she just asks him, all right, so what do you like doing? And it's like the guy can't even believe she asked. He just starts absolutely talking her ear off about horses and racing. Right then, both Tom and Ryder are just staring at her, totally mind blown, wondering, wait, how on earth did she manage to get him to open up like that? Caroline is absolutely eating herself alive with jealousy right now, because with zero effort, Mary still managed to grab their attention. So she goes out of her way to be nasty to her, hitting her with, it's honestly so weird. You literally share zero traits with your sisters. You're not pretty, you're not smart, and you basically have zero personality. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a little friendly advice. If you're thinking about getting close to Ryder, he's just going to reject you in the end, and you definitely won't be able to handle that kind of humiliation and rejection. And right here, Mary actually claps back for the absolute first time in her life. She's like, wow, you sound like you speak from a ton of personal experience, seeing as you're just handing out all this free advice to everyone. Caroline gets incredibly flustered because she did not see that comeback coming, and she just turns around and storms off. Right then, Tom takes full advantage of the fact that she's finally standing all by herself. He pulls her aside and warns her, look, I've noticed Ryder getting super close to you lately, so just watch your back around him, all right? The guy is incredibly reckless. She gets totally annoyed by this, mostly because there's literally nothing going on between them. She just genuinely enjoys hanging out with him. And that's it. Meanwhile, Caroline is completely out for blood and wants her revenge. So, right in front of the entire room, she suddenly puts Mary on the spot and demands that she sing. Mary gets incredibly embarrassed because there is absolutely zero chance she is repeating that disaster ever again. And just to add to the absolute dumpster fire of a night, her uncle comes rushing in, totally panicked. He tells her that her mom just sent a letter saying she's incredibly sick. Mary totally freaks out, and in all the panic, she accidentally bumps into the table and completely shatters Ryder's dad's vase. Naturally, she is so mortified that she just storms out without saying a single word. And for the entire trip back, the only thing running through her head is, I honestly can't survive without my mom around. But the second she finally arrives, she's completely blindsided. All her sisters are just chilling there, and her mom is perfectly fine. And as usual, her mom hits her with absolute coldness and won't even give her a proper greeting. Not to mention, she immediately starts tearing down her looks, basically telling her, wow, living in London made your skin look so much worse. And honestly, the thing that breaks Mary's heart the most right then is realizing she's right back at square one, the exact same toxic environment she was desperately trying to escape this whole time. By the very next day, her mom literally assigns her to dog duty, making her completely responsible for feeding and watering the pet. A whole week drags by in the city, and literally no one even notices how miserable she is, except for her sister, Lizzie. Mary totally spills everything to her, confessing, my absolute last day in London was a complete disaster. I did so many things that just made me look completely awful. Lizzie tries her best to comfort her, reassuring her that anyone could freeze up in situations like that, and that with time, everyone just forgets about it anyway. But suddenly, the servant pops in to tell her that she's got a visitor waiting in the guest room. She is totally baffled. I mean, who on earth would travel all the way from London just to see her? And the second she sees Ryder standing right there in front of her, she literally can't believe her eyes because she was so totally convinced that he was absolutely furious with her over that whole shattered vase incident. Meanwhile, her mom and sisters are completely blown away. Not only is he super handsome and visibly loaded, but he jumps at literally every single chance to praise her and make it super obvious just how much he absolutely loves spending time with her. Naturally, this leads to her mom totally inviting him to crash with them for a few days. The very next day, Ryder actually finds himself pouring his heart out to Mary, telling her all about his childhood. He tells her, "I was incredibly attached to my dad, but he was constantly locked in his office studying because he was a bug expert, right up until he passed away when I was 15. He goes on to say, "And the only thing eating away at me back then was the fact that I barely got to spend any time with him. That's exactly what made me promise myself to spend my entire life discovering the things that actually make me happy." He then asks her to go horseback riding together, and she actually says yes, even though she doesn't even like horses in the first place. The second she gets back home, her mom corners her and hits her with, "It is super obvious that Ryder is going to propose to you, so you better say yes, because there is absolutely zero chance you'll ever find a better catch." Mary gets incredibly annoyed by this and just straight up walks away from her. And sure enough, Ryder pulls her aside and asks to talk because he needs to discuss something super important. He totally hypes her up, telling her, "From the absolute first day I met you, I've been seeing everything from a completely different perspective, and it just makes me want to spend way more time with you. So, how about you take a trip to Italy with me? We can live together and just learn everything side by side from the ground up." But right when he senses that she's actually getting totally hyped about the idea, he completely puts his foot in his mouth. He hits her with, "I just knew you were exactly like me," totally against the suffocating chains of marriage. Mary stops dead in her tracks at that sentence. She looks at him and asks, "Wait, you want me to travel with you without getting married?" To his credit, he immediately realizes he totally freaked her out with that line. So he gives her until tomorrow to think it over, since he's packing his bags and hitting the road in the morning. At the end of the day, Lizzie pops in to check on her sister and asks, "So, did he pop the question yet?" And obviously, the second she finds out what the actual offer was, she gets completely ticked off. She's like, "Wait, so he basically just wants to keep you as a side piece to pass the time until he gets bored and moves on to the next girl?" Mary gets absolutely furious hearing that, because Ryder is literally the very first person to ever give her this kind of attention and actually put in the effort for her. She snaps back, "Are you genuinely worried about me? Or are you just terrified of the massive scandal blowing up in your face?" Lizzie quickly realizes that talking to her right now is totally useless, so she just leaves her with one final question. Do you even actually love him enough to throw your life away for him? And with that, she walks out, leaving Mary alone with her thoughts to make the final call. The very next day, Mary completely shoots straight with him. She tells him, "I honestly can't do this because I actually respect my reputation in society, but I know for a fact you'll find the right person who's fully on board to live out all those wild dreams with you." Ryder is visibly heartbroken, but of course, he completely respects her decision. He packs up all his stuff and hits the road. But right then, the real nightmare begins. With her mom, because the second she finds out he proposed and Mary shot him down, she completely blackmails her. She gives her an ultimatum. Either you write him a letter right now begging for his forgiveness and accepting his offer, or you are absolutely never going back to London and you're going to spend the rest of your entire life as my personal servant. So, Mary actually chooses the servant life, because honestly, that is way easier than tying herself to a guy she doesn't even love. As the days go by, Lizzie gets incredibly sick of how their mom is treating her sister. So she sends a letter to their uncle, literally begging him to come down in person and bust Mary out of her mom's prison. And sure enough, the second they arrive, they invite Mary to tag along on a trip to the Lake District. But her mom instantly shoots it down, letting them know that Mary is officially grounded from all the joys of life. But Mary has absolutely reached her breaking point with this whole slavery vibe. She tells them, "Thanks for the offer. I would love to come with you." Lizzie is absolutely thrilled because Mary finally managed to stand up for herself. Right before she hits the road, Lizzie pulls her aside and tells her, "I'm so sorry for any time I ever made you feel like I was embarrassed by you, because I am always so proud of you, and I'm proud you're my sister." Mary just hugs her because she had honestly been dying to hear those words for a very long time. The second she hops in the carriage, Aunt Gardner drops a little news on her. They're actually going to be meeting up with Tom in the Lake District. Mary is just sitting there thinking, seriously, when is my life ever going to go back to normal? By pure coincidence, she bumps into Baxter at the rest stop. She's super happy to see her because it's been a minute since they last hung out. But you know what makes her even happier? Finding out that Baxter and Tom actually broke up. Baxter realized her feelings for him just weren't the same anymore. And on top of that, she's actually already engaged to another guy she met at the last party they were all at together. On the flip side, Mary is totally stressing out that Tom might be heartbroken over the breakup. So, the minute they finally meet up in the Lake District, she is super anxious about bringing it up, not wanting to kill his vibe. Meanwhile, he's totally terrified to ask her about Ryder's little visit, just in case they ended up getting engaged or something. Later on, they go fishing and just chill together in the woods. At the end of the day, Aunt Gardner drops a massive hint to Mary, saying, "Look, it is super obvious that Tom is not affected by that breakup at all. Plus, he is way too comfortable hanging out with you. Or what do you think?" A week later, he takes her out on a boat, just the two of them, so he can finally confess his feelings. He tells her, "I honestly wasn't upset at all when I ended things with Baxter. My feelings for her changed a really long time ago." He's just about to finish his thought, but he doesn't even get the chance, because suddenly they hear Ryder shouting at them from the shoreline. And Ryder is so insanely hyped that he bumped into them by coincidence that he literally swims all the way out to their boat. And in doing so, he completely torpedoes the exact moment the two of them had been waiting for forever. When Tom tries to pull him onto the boat, he ends up getting yanked right into the water himself. So they both have to swim back to shore. And unfortunately, there's a bigger problem. Ryder didn't come on this trip alone. He brought Caroline along, and her entire face just sourly shifts the second she spots Mary standing there. At the end of the day, they're all gathered for dinner, and Tom lets Mary know he's got everything ready for them to go mountain climbing together tomorrow. But Ryder just jumps right into the conversation like, "Hey, how about we all go? Better than you two being out there all by yourselves, right?" Mary has to fake being excited because she doesn't want to hurt his feelings. But inside, she's just thinking, seriously, the one time I finally give up on the idea of marriage, I've got two guys basically bickering over me. The next day, as soon as she wakes up, she knows exactly which one she wants. She gets ready with massive enthusiasm to start their trek. But halfway up, her uncle and aunt totally lose interest and decide to head back to the hotel. Mary, though, is absolutely mesmerized by the scenery around her. The second they reach the summit, Tom takes the plunge and goes to finish his confession. He tells her, "I'm just so incredibly happy to be sharing these moments with you. There is literally nobody I can be my true self with except you." He's this close to finally popping the question, but Ryder swoops in and completely trashes the moment. He's like, "Sorry, Tom, I really need to talk to you about something super urgent regarding work. It literally cannot wait." The weirdest part? As soon as they finish talking and Mary heads over to Tom to pick up where they left off, his entire vibe has flipped 180 degrees. He flat out tells her that his personal circumstances have changed, and basically, there can't be anything between them anymore. Mary spends the rest of the trip completely ghosted in her own head. She literally cannot wrap her brain around what could have changed in a single heartbeat to make him treat her like that. Right then, their guide drops a bombshell. They have to get off the mountain right now because a massive storm is about to hit. On the other hand, Ryder gets all hyped up. Like, imagine seeing a storm and floods from the peak. YOLO, right? We gotta experience everything. But Tom actually understands the scale of the disaster and tries to give him a reality check, telling him this is absolutely not the time for reckless stunts because people could actually get hurt. And right there, Mary refuses to go down the mountain, just out of pure spite to annoy Tom. Tom is absolutely floored that she's acting this petty, but his hands are tied. He has to stay on the mountain with them because he promised her uncle he'd keep her safe until they were back on solid ground. A few minutes later, the weather turns into a full-blown nightmare, exactly like the guide warned. And of course, Ryder is the very first one to bolt and leave them behind. He totally saves his own skin and suddenly forgets all that YOLO and once-in-a-lifetime experience garbage he was preaching. Meanwhile, Caroline trips and her leg gets pinned between the rocks. Mary actually stays behind with her, using every ounce of her strength to push the rock and free her leg. And then she and Tom literally carry her the rest of the way down. The second they hit the hotel, passes out from pure exhaustion. And sadly, her health takes a nosedive, leaving her bedridden for days. Tom just sits outside her room, hoping she'll wake up so he can make sure she's okay. But when she finally comes to, and the doctor gives them the green light that she's recovering, we see him just pack his bags and skip town without even saying goodbye. Later, when Mary gets back to London, she finds out that Tom has completely vanished into thin air. Nobody has a clue where he went. So, she decides to go all in on herself, focusing on discovering what she actually wants to do with her life. But of course, a new roadblock pops up. Her mom shows up in London in the flesh to stay for a few days, and she flat out tells her, "I'm here specifically to hunt for a husband for you myself, because it's crystal clear nothing good is ever going to come from your own efforts." And so begins the nightmare marathon of blind dates, and every single one of them is an absolute train wreck. That is, until the day that flips the script. Ryder visits her personally to apologize for everything that happened because of him. And not only that, he lets her know that he's actually learned his lesson, realizing that being reckless is definitely not the secret to having a good time. But here's the real shocker. He actually proposes. And this time, it's for a real deal, legit marriage. Mary is forced to be 100% blunt with him, telling him, "Look, I just don't have feelings for you. I could never make you happy, and you deserve to be with someone who truly loves you." He finally gets the message that there's zero hope, says his goodbyes, and leaves. Right at that exact second, her mom comes charging in, hoping to catch him and save the day. But Mary finally stands her ground and tells her, "Enough." Then she just heads out to get some fresh air and clear her head away from the house. By total chance, she bumps into Mr. Sparrow, the glasses expert from back home. He explains that he's graduated from med school and is officially a doctor now. Plus, he's got a daughter who's turning 1 next month. She's genuinely stoked for him because he basically achieved every single thing he ever dreamed of. That's when he gets a little bold and asks her, "Why are you constantly trying to please your mom at your own expense? It's a losing battle anyway, since your mindsets are worlds apart. Just try living your life your own way." He says his goodbye, and he's off. And honestly, his words hit her so hard that she actually goes back and confronts her mom with the cold, hard truth. She makes it crystal clear. "I am not marrying Ryder, and I'm not getting married at all until the time is right for me. I get that you're doing all this because you think happiness is just landing a good husband, but I'm happy with the life I've chosen. So enough is enough." But her mom's ego is just too big. She refuses to accept it, packs her bags, and heads back to the city, totally salty. The very next day, Caroline visits Mary at the house to thank her for saving her life on the mountain, because anyone else would have probably just left her there after everything she put them through. Mary tries to put her mind at ease, explaining that Ryder is just a friend because her heart belongs entirely to Tom, even if it wasn't meant to be. Caroline is absolutely thrilled because she finally knows the coast is clear. A week later, Mary's life has finally leveled out. She's working as a nanny, exactly like she dreamed. Gradually, she stops caring about people's gossip or how they look at her. Most importantly, she finally found that sense of family with her uncle and aunt. Then one day, she's walking through the square and boom! Tom is standing right there in front of her. She totally loses her cool. Like, where on earth have you been hiding this whole time? He apologizes and explains everything. "That day on the mountain, when Ryder pulled me aside, he told me he was planning to propose to you. Since he's way better off financially, I felt like I had to step back so I wouldn't ruin a great opportunity for you." Mary just loses it on him. "You have zero right to decide what's best for me. I know for a fact that being with you is exactly where I belong because I love you." And finally, he lets out that confession he's been holding in forever. He loves her too. As for why he came back, it turns out Caroline sent him a letter explaining the whole situation and telling him that Mary loves him just to pay her back for saving her life. A little while later, they finally tie the knot, filling their home with every little detail they ever dreamed of. May you all find the same happiness. And that's a wrap on the series. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let us know what you think in the comments. All's well that ends well. Peace out.